Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining and for coming back. This is Joanna the medium and your intuitive coach. Just very quickly, these are going to be your October readings. I use different cards, sometimes different decks in different readings. Always remember these are general readings, so if you would like a private session, that information is down below for you. Also, if you would like to have the long-term forecast from July until the end of the year, you can do so, or you can purchase those videos on my video page or Vimeo page, and that information is also down below for you. I don't think I have anything that is pressing other than thank you so much for watching, for liking, and for sharing. I always want to make sure that I say this first and foremost, because without you, I wouldn't be doing this. And remember that these messages are general, like I said, and they may not apply to all of you. Some messages may apply to some of you. Some messages may apply to different parts of your life, or a little bit of my message may apply to some of your life. So take what makes sense and discard what doesn't. But always remember, it is almost always, these messages never make sense at the beginning of a month, and they almost always make sense towards the end of the month and the beginning of the next month, which would be November, for this series. So also listen to your moon sign and your rising sign, as these may offer you greater clarity. And I think that's all I have. Enjoy these videos, and I look forward to hearing from you. And if you wish to book a reading with me, that information is down below for you. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon. Bye. Hello, beautiful Capricorns. This is going to be your reading for the month of October. I'm going to start off with a channeled message first. And the word that came to me first when I was connecting with your energy is the word of manifestation. I also drew a heart right to the word Capricorn, and that told me that many of you are in a process of manifesting a love relationship. That's not going to be for all of you, obviously, but it's going to be a substantial number of you. So we will get into details of what that entails. The other thing that I saw is that although many of you may be in a process of manifesting a relationship, and this could also mean relationship with regards to work, but I'm going to stick with love life first. The month of October seems to be a month of waiting. So it's a process of waiting. And the image that was being given to me signified that you are in a process of waiting until things are cooked just right. And that's obviously a metaphor. And sometimes, or actually almost often, if something is not cooked enough, something will not be as edible or as digestible, and it may give you a stomach ache or some other feeling that you don't want. So this being a metaphor basically signifies that many of you are in a process of creating a brand new existence, or creating an environment where you will be in a relationship, for the most part love relationship, and for some of you this is going to be work related. And although you may be really wanting that to happen, there is a moment of gestation, if I will, I'll call it that way, where there are some aspects that still are needing to come to a certain place in order for you to be ready to be in a meaningful, long-term, lasting relationship. The other thing I kept seeing is that you need to be still in the month of October without being desperate or trying very hard in order to make something happen. So in a, you know, to translate this in a physical form, in a formal way, is maybe take the month of October as a bit of a break from trying to pursue a relationship or trying to find a relationship where you're spending a lot of time and energy, and that's your only focus. So you're not being asked to stop it altogether, but there seems to be an element of waiting things out until the right circumstances or the energy is ripe. And it feels to me like for many of you, the energy isn't quite ripe yet. And we will talk about why that is, because there's some components here that came up that made me go, okay, that makes perfect sense. the other thing I kept seeing, and this might be similar, it could be the same thing or connected to something different. I saw many of you waiting for the right opportunity to arrive. So the opportunity could be in form of a relationship, or it could be in form of job, career, or any other opportunity that will feel satisfactory to you. And so for many of you, you're in a process of waiting. It's a similar message as the one before, but some of you are going to find yourself in a month of October that you are in an environment or in a relationship that you thought was the right one, but it turns out the conditions are such that it is no longer meaningful to you, or it's no longer satisfying to you. That's what I'm going to say. So that can be, you may find yourself in October in that relationship, in that situation where you will meet someone, or you will potentially find yourself in a brand new environment where you think that it is everything that you've wanted, but then very quickly you will realize it's not what it's cracked up to be, and it actually is somehow dysfunctional. So that may be for some of you in October. Some of you may already be in a relationship, and in the month of October, you will find that the situation you are in right now that you thought was seemingly everything you ever wanted is actually farther from the truth of what you want than, it's actually further from the truth. So basically what I'm trying to say is this: you're going to find yourself in a situation where something isn't quite the way you want it to be, and it's going to be a bigger realization for you. So for some of you, there was a word of contest. So the contest is a separate situation where many of you are in some kind of a contest-like situation, whether it is in a contest to get a job, and there are several people who are vying for the same position, or whether it is contest with sports, or whether it is you are putting yourself out there through some sort of contest. There's some sort of contest connected to the message of you figuring out that is maybe something that I wanted, but it actually turns out it's not. And I can't even imagine what this could be, because there could be so many different scenarios where the word contest is part of a situation. But for those of you who you're meant to hear it, it's hard for me to formulate this. For those of you who are meant to hear it, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. The word contest was shown to me, and it's being underlined. So there's some of you will be in a contest of some sort. Let me just see. Some of you will find yourself in a situation that seems eerily similar. And what's interesting is that when I did cards after, a card came up that speaks to that particular notion. So don't be surprised if you get yourself into a situation where you think, oh my God, this is everything I ever wanted, and it's amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then in the month of October, and for some of you, it might have already be happening in September, you finally get to the point where you go, oh my God, this is exactly the same as what has been. Or you're going to go, oh my God, this seems eerily familiar. And because of the way I'm feeling it, that familiarity is actually not a good thing. So if you are looking for a relationship and you are in a relationship right now, you might find yourself that it's not what it's cracked up to be. And as a matter of fact, looks like you have attracted this similar thing, just wearing different clothing or in different package. So obviously that's not going to be for all of you clearly, but it is going to be for some of you. For many of you, this is going to be regarding a relationship. But it can be love relationship, it could be work relationship, it could be friendship, it could be family, it could be anything. There is relationship here connected to this. For some of you, you may find yourself in a job situation where you thought, oh my God, it's everything I ever wanted, or it's way better than what I'm used to, just to realize in the month of October, oh my God, this is exactly the same. What have I done? So there seems to be a level of conclusions that you are going to be facing. And what I mean by this, you're going to come to some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? You're going to find yourself having some sort of epiphany or realization. And with that realization, what will follow is a change of environment. So you will realize something that where you're in, it's no longer working for you. And because of that, eventually the change will take place. So many of you will have realizations in the month of October. Let me just see if there's anything else. No, that's it. So that is part of the channeled message. Then I took cards and I said, what is the overall energy for the month of October? 2 cards came up for the overall energy. The first card is 4 of Pentacles, and the second card is Judgment card, or Justice in the traditional tarot deck. Those 2 came together, and the message I receive is because of the combination of all those 2. So the energy here is that in the month of October, you will be working, or you will be putting attention into creating your environment and putting forth practices, ideals, behaviors, structures, forms, groundwork in order to find greater balance in your life. That is how the message comes to me. Now, because it's 4 of Pentacles, because it's the earth element, a lot of this will be regarding work and romantic relationships. Some other relationships, yes, but predominantly work and relationships. And for many of you, this will be an effort you will be putting in the month of October in order to project certain ideas and project certain attitudes and physical attributes in order to create an environment that will be sustainable long term. So what does that really mean in English? Basically, in plain English, it means that many of you will be restructuring how you work, whether it's how you work in a relationship or how you work in your work environment, how you work at home, or how your life is functioning outside of you. Many of you will be putting effort into making that happen in order for you to have more balance in your life. Now, this card is also representative of legal actions, and it's also cause and effect. So many of you will also come to realizations, and you will see very clearly the aspect of cause and effect, or in other words, where you are and what you have been thinking or feeling, or in other words, what you have been feeling and thinking, or what you represent, has contributed to where you are in a situation. So cause effect basically is who you are and what you think of yourself and what you believe essentially eventually becomes your reality. And I feel many of you will come to conclusions that what it has been within you is actually the very aspects that are holding you back, and those are the aspects that have got you into situations before that you did not feel were good for you, appropriate, long-term, sustainable, whatever it may be. So that is the overall energy. I hope that makes sense to you guys. It's interesting, and there's also messages here from other cards. So the next card I have, and the question with this card was, what is in front of them? What is it that they're going to be dealing with? The card that came up was exchanging gifts. This is Colette Baron card, but the card came up in protection position. In other words, in reverse. And basically, this is a message about, as be careful what you ask for. So you may find yourself again in a situation where you are somewhere, either with someone or in a work environment, and what seemed to be something you've always wanted, now you realize it either is not, or what you need to do in order to sustain that, you are not willing to contribute. So another way of saying is this. Let's say you find yourself in a relationship, and the relationship, seems to be on the onset amazing, everything you've always wanted, but then you get into a point where the relationship asks of you to be very honest with yourself and very honest with the partner. And because of your underlying conditioning and fears, you may not be able to do that. And because of it, you may need to part ways because what is being asked of you, you are not able to fulfill. And this particularly talks about being in a position where you need to give more than you are willing. And this is not about giving without receiving. This is about, I'm going to give a different example. If you are someone who has been a doormat, and that's just an example that's being given to me, but you've always wanted to have a really strong relationship and someone who really admires you and takes you seriously and has respect for you, and then you find yourself in a relationship that seems to be everything you've ever wanted, but the partner is really strong, and what's required of you in order to match that partner, you have to give up your tendencies to please. Now, because your tendencies to please are based in your fears, you may not be able to give that aspect of you yet because you haven't figured out that there's a fear attached to it and you haven't done the work in order to let it go. So that is the example that's being given. I'm hoping it's going to make sense to you. Bottom line is, the message with this card is be careful what you ask for. Sometimes what we ask for, we are not prepared to deal with. And for those of you who this is supposed to make sense to, I feel you will understand it at least at the end of the month. The other thing I asked was, let me just see if there's anything else. What to look out for. The card of round and round came up, and it's also in a protection position. And what this is talking about basically is, make sure that you do not deceive yourself by refusing to acknowledge what part you play in a situation that you are not happy with. So this is about patterns and behaviors, and again, finding yourself in a certain situation that doesn't seem to be going the way you want to, but needing to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, how am I contributing to being in this situation? Now, some people may say, I'm not, it happens to me. It doesn't. We make things happen, and we create. I'm going to use the word create. We create things. We manifest things. So if you are finding yourself in the same situation over and over, but that situation is just that basically wearing different clothing or it's packaged differently, you have to ask yourself, how are you contributing to constantly keep attracting that same situation? And you have to get to a point where you acknowledge your responsibility for your creative output, which is your current situation. So the message simply is, if you are finding yourself in a situation that seems eerily familiar, you have to ask yourself, how am I contributing to this situation? It doesn't just happen to me. I am part of creating this. So what is it that I come with that is creating the situation that I don't want? And that kind of honesty has the potential to give you extraordinary capacity to see things clearly in a way that will empower you and will allow you not to make the same mistakes again. Because, mistakes are not really mistakes. They're a way for us to learn. But if you keep learning the same lesson, you're not getting the picture. You're not getting the message. So that is what you are to be on the lookout for. One of the things that's being shown is, and this is an example, that I'm not saying that's you, but one of the examples are being shown is this. If you think of yourself as someone who is a victim, in other words, life always happens to me, life is terrible, I always attract these people, why does this thing always happen to me, why am I always unhappy? If you find yourself in that situation, and if you find yourself that's who you are, you will create that experience for you over and over and over until you realize that those pieces of you that you're bringing with you are contributing to that situation. So in other words, if you don't want to be victim, start understanding what it is about you that is victim-like. And that's a drastic example, but that's the one that he's asking me to say. The other example is if you're constantly struggling with money, or people who are dishonest, or people who are stealing from you in some way, shape, or form, and you're always giving, but you're not receiving. You have to acknowledge that in order for you to keep attracting those situations, there is something within you that is acting like a magnet in order for you to be in that situation. So if you find yourself in the same shoes, so to speak, or eerily similar situation, you have to ask yourself, what am I bringing to the table to create this? What is my contribution into this situation that I don't like? And sometimes it requires us to have to probe deeply and realize that we are behaving based on falsified belief system that we have acquired at some point in our life, typically when we were younger. So for those of you who are struggling with money, for example, or you feel like people always wrong you, or you always give but don't receive, you need to look at your internal belief system or your compass and ask yourself, deep within myself, do I feel worthy? What is my connection to myself? What is my worth? What was I taught about my worth? What have I experienced growing up that told me about my worth? And by probing into those questions, I think you'll find some pretty amazing answers that may give you the proverbial aha moment. Okay? The advice card is higher power. It couldn't be any more perfect than this. This basically says, connect with your higher power. Connect with that source within you that is bigger than the fear, that is bigger than the brain, that is bigger than the logic, that is bigger than the failures, that is bigger than all the things that we tell ourselves we are or are not. And make a conscious effort in connecting with that part of you, whether it's through intuition, whether it's through meditation, whatever it is, connect with the divine aspect of you. And blaming yourself constantly is not connecting with that divine aspect of you, because the divine aspect of you is absolutely perfect in every way, shape, or form. The other thing is, the advice here is to make sure that you always at least try your best to come from the place of higher wisdom. And living in a 3D environment in this density, we often come from our head and our logic, and sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. So this is about you realizing that many of the situations you get yourself into, particularly creating the same scenarios over and over again, those aspects of you are not your divine self. Those are aspects of your wounded ego, or the wounded child, or the wounded part of you that keeps creating based on your fears and on your assumptions of what you're not. Okay, so this is, pay attention to the higher aspect of you. This card, I also hear ask for guidance, pray for guidance, whatever that means for you, whether it's through meditation, whether it's through formal prayer, whether it's through some informal way or non-formal way of asking for guided spirits, people who are spiritually inclined, whatever that means. This is about using your higher divine self as a source of inspiration. I think that's all I had on this. What did I write here? Yeah, this is also about your worth. This is also about recognizing your worth and making sure that you come from a place of wholeness and not from the broken place. And most human beings have wounds. We all go through it, and all of our fears, most of them anyway, and our weaknesses come from the wounds that we experience when we are young, particularly because one of the cards you have is gift and exchange, and making sure that you're not overgiving, and making sure that you come always from the place of wholeness and not a place of obscurity or place of damage, place of victim, because that's opposite of who you truly are as the divine aspect of you. And then I said, what resources will they have in order to overcome this? And this is something interesting that came up, because the card of Devil came up, and I kind of looked at it and I thought, what are you trying to tell me? And I got it. Basically, this card is asking you, the message about this card is this: in order to be your divine self, in order to connect with your higher being, in order to be your higher self and be at your best most of the time, look at your addictions. Look at the things that keep you stuck. Look at the messages you tell yourself. Look at the, what did I write here? Face your fears that are disguised as addictions. And addictions are anything from being workaholic to being sex addict, drug addict, gambling to, nonstop, anything that's severely out of balance that causes you to feel empty at the end of the day, because those are really fears in disguise. So for those of you who have addictions like drinking too much, eating too much, working too much, addicted to unhealthy relationships, addicted to overgiving, addicted to pleasing, all of that is basically your pain disguised as all those things you're trying to fulfill. So basically the message here is, in order to connect to your higher self, look at the addictions or the behavior that is not working for you, and look underneath that behavior and notice what this behavior is trying to fulfill. And it is always lack, L-A-C-K, of something. I hope this was helpful. A little bit interesting message, a little bit, not heavier, but a little bit deeper than the other ones. But I do hope it makes sense. The energies are actually I feel like I'm trying to walk through mud. And it's hard walking through mud because it's so heavy. So the month of October might be a month of work for you in order to figure out aspects about you that don't work but have not been brought up to surface. And if you can bring those aspects up to surface and have a cognitive knowledge or an awareness, that's when you can start shifting your perception by changing your behavior that constantly feeds the false perception or that feeling. I hope this makes sense. Of course, this is general reading. It won't make sense to everyone, but it'll make sense to some of you on some level. And please listen to this at the end of the month, because it'll almost always make more sense than at the beginning. And of course, listen to your other signs, because that may be also much more cohesive when you listen to all three. And of course, if you would like a private session, by all means, contact me. I wish you a wonderful month of October. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in November. Bye.